The two twin forces of life. I know you guys have heard it many times. What are they? Pain and pleasure. So I had a breakthrough today that I want to share with you guys. It's building off of yesterday's video a little, but something came apparent to me because obviously you guys know Sam and I are doing this business together, and obviously like we're two different mindsets, we're two different belief systems, we're two different beings, you know? And I was thinking deeply about how I have pretty much become aware in essence of the pain and pleasure linkages that I may have set myself unconsciously. And maybe you have done this too. Maybe you've become aware of it. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you've had the same realization where you have maybe linked pleasure to not having a business or having a service, because then that would mean that you would have to change. And then that means your identity would have to change. That means you'd have to have more responsibility. That would mean you would have to follow through with the result, own the result, know the result works. You know, pain and pleasure linkages towards the result, knowing that it's something, you know, that you can be pleasurable, that you know it's going to work, versus the pain that you link to knowing that it doesn't work. So I was kind of trying to extrapolate this thought, and I'm realizing my videos lately have just kind of been my stream of consciousness, just kind of pouring out onto the video. So indulge me with this thought here, because maybe you've thought about this, maybe you've heard of this psychology where what you link pain to, you obviously don't want to do. What you link pleasure to, you do it anyways, even if it's harmful or if it's comfortable, you know. But I think that's kind of the thing that, you know, business people, you know, creators, artists, anybody deals with is, you know, that type of pain pleasure battle of changing. You know, like obviously you've come into the world, you've come into your life, you've come into your business being a little comfortable in some areas of your life, you know, and then you get to a point where you hit a threshold and you're just like, I don't want this anymore. I want to do something different. I want more of myself. But there's all this unconscious systems interworking you to not get those results, right? And honestly, it really just comes down to those two, you know, pain and pleasure. So that's where I was at, guys. I was thinking about it today. I was like, was I linking a bunch of pleasure to not having a service, not having a business? Because then that would mean pain, you know? And it just, I'm sorry guys, it threw me for a loop, because I was thinking about the opposite, the contrast, right? Like, what is the contrast? Like, what if I linked a whole bunch of pleasure to having a result, having a service, you know? And that's what's prevented me from having the service. If that makes any sense, if you guys are like kind of catching what I'm trying to say here, I think there's a lot to pull, a lot of juice to squeeze here. Guys, so I made this visual here. Hopefully this does a little bit of a better job explaining it. So this is kind of in the essence of what I was talking about when it comes to the wiring. So the emotional wiring was keeping me from basically building a business, is what I realized. And it showed in my behavior. So what do I mean by that? It's basically like there would be pleasure that would be linked to not having a business, which would basically go into the whole idea of ego death, you know, because if I had a business, then that would mean pain. That's how I linked it. And it meant that I would have to change, and then I would have to be more responsible, and I would have to have a result. And that felt good, you know, because I gave pleasure linkage to not having to change. Like, oh, I don't have to do work. And like, see, that's the message that I wanted to get out. And that's the thing that many people deal with is, you know, it feels good to not do anything. That's the whole point, you know. It just felt good to stay stuck. And it's like, oh yeah, you know, like, who cares? I'll just keep trying to build a lead list, and I'll just keep trying to do this, and I'll just keep trying to do that, versus actually having to sit down in front of somebody and take on the responsibility of getting them result, having a service delivery, and actually helping them, you know, because with the pleasure of not having a business, there's no obligation, you know, there's no promise to keep, there's no pressure to deliver, there's no exposure to failure, there's no like, oh, I got to give you a refund and I've wasted 90 days of your life, sorry. Yeah, there's a lot of pain to that. So there was the linkages of pleasure to not having a business, you know. There was no identity change, there was no any sort of like relief needed. It was just like, oh yeah, like it's fine. And it comes in some terrible ways, right? Like that's kind of what I'm trying to say here. It's like pleasure. Think about all the things that you do for pleasure that are keeping you from linking pleasure to just having the business, right? Like how you're wired is everything, guys, because if you're linking that pleasure, and see, this isn't something that just you can just say, okay, Ryan, sounds great, let me just link pain to not having a business. Like there is so much stuff that needs to go into it, and that's what I'm trying to say here. It's hard to explain this because I'm living this in real time, and there's been kind of a lot of frustration even grasping this thought, because my identity has to change around this to be like honest with myself, and say, hey man, you've kind of been slacking, and a lot of your pleasurable behaviors that you think are nothing is actually faulty programming and wiring, and you're never going to actually have the results in the life that you want if you don't change your pain and pleasure linkages. So that's the whole point here with number 2 is the pain linkages to having a business. Think about why that feels threatening. Like that feels threatening to your identity. It feels threatening to the amount of pleasure that you're pursuing right now, the amount of movies you watch, the food you eat, the screwing off that you do. It's a lot of pain to be having to give yourself your energy to something other than yourself, because that's what you've done before. Maybe that's not what you've done, but that's what I've been doing, and it's been keeping me small. And today with the conversation with Sam, it was like, man, Sam has a different level of wiring than I do, and I have a different level of wiring than her. And that's what we've been able to do, is take our twin forces and almost kind of help accelerate each other. She does what I don't want to do. I do what she doesn't want to do. And that's how we've been able to move faster. So if you're lucky to have somebody, great. If you're in this alone, then just really try to give yourself, not only the permission, but the forgiveness, because you may have not, including myself, may have not chosen to be this way, right? You might have not looked at yourself and been like, maybe you felt like, I should have been so much further along, and, now I'm getting older, and, like, why are other people, so far ahead? It's like literally this. And it just gets to a point in everybody's journey, like you have to get to a point where you become aware of your wiring, you become aware of what you're linking pain and pleasure to. And I've been listening to a lot of Tony Robbins, and he talked about this, and it kind of was like a harsh truth in a way, where I was like, yeah, Tony, like that sounds really like my problem. I'm probably linking pain and pleasure to things that I probably shouldn't be. I know that I definitely link pain and pleasure to some things that a lot of the majority, of people don't do. So like I do give myself credit to some capacity, because I know some people are even too scared to even post on YouTube. I used to be linking a lot of pain to posting on YouTube and being scared about that, but then I just said, screw it. Life's way too short. And then I found ways to link more pleasure to doing it, because that's just a personal journey. Like you have to stack the rocks. Beliefs are like a set of scales. Pain and pleasure is the same thing, right? It's like if you link a bunch of experiences that create wiring to make you feel pain towards something, and see, this is also subconscious. This isn't just conscious, it's subconscious as well, because maybe you heard somebody say something, or something was said, something happened to you, something happened along the way, and it's like these heavy rocks and experiences stack on either side, so you end up linking pain or pleasure to things. Myself, I probably linked all that pain to having a business, because then that wouldn't mean I'd be free and be comfortable. And then that's where you start having paradoxes and conflicts and all this stuff. And I was trying to say this earlier, like this is what I believe a journey everybody is going to go through when they're having a business, when they're doing a business. And this is what happened to me recently when we pretty much have, a client now, because it's like I have to kill myself. I have to literally ego death myself and rewire myself to linking pleasure now to having a business and pain to not having a business, because I now know what it means to have a business. And there's so many things changing and going on inside my mind now when this is happening, because like the whole thing is like I was resisting. Hold on, let me think about this. It's like I'm telling you guys, like, this is like definitely like one of those more challenging things to break down here. But the idea being pleasure linkages to the business now means like you can't go back. I think that's what I'm trying to say here. It's like I now know the truth, and like the truth like will always set you free. Like that's a quote, a belief I fully hold. And this is, I feel like, a very truthful moment coming to me, because when I'm able to now see what it means to link pleasure to having a business and pain to not having a business, I know what that's going to do for me in the long haul. Because if I continue, and this same thing for you too, whatever way you're living, say you're deciding to just, disregard what I'm saying and, be like, all right, whatever, like I'm going to move on with my life and I'm just going to continue linking pleasure to not having a business, and I'm just going to stay comfortable. I'm just going to keep doing my thing, and I'm never going to value myself. No one's ever going to value me. I'm never going to create a service of value that's going to pay me my worth. Like if you just continue living that way, knowing that you are able to change your plain pleasure linkages through experiences and evidence, you will then soon realize that there's another side of your experience where you have the opposite pain pleasure linkages, so that you have a business, and so that you have the pain linkage to not having a business, so you can solve a real problem, so you can have a delivery system that you trust and will make you money, and you feel pleasurable about doing that, versus the pleasure of just not having that. It's like, it's so screwed up, right? The whole thing is screwed up because you have the choice. You have the ability to do it. And I feel so passionate and so painful about this, because this is something that it's just like an invisible thing, right? Like no one talks about this. I'm just like, I'm glad I'm even having the consciousness to even comprehend this and understand this. Maybe it's simple for you. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's like, whoa, Ryan, what the hell? Your videos has taken a twist today. So where I was going with that was I had linked pain, and this is where the breakthrough came through, right? I was linking pain to having a client. Sam was linking pain to having a service delivery, right? And that's what I was going on about the whole, we had different pain and pleasure linkages, because my pain was like, oh, if I have a client, then that means I have obligations. Sam was like, oh, if I have a service delivery, then what?
I don't know what to do.
Then like Sam doesn't know what to do. It's more effort. It's more like, oh, I got to do more work on top of the work I'm already doing. So think about that for a second. I was linking, and this is where the breakthrough came to me today, right? Was I was sitting there and I thought, oh yeah, like what are the two twin forces of life? Pain and pleasure. Okay. I was linking pain to having that first customer. So I was doing all the work, but I wasn't doing the work to get the customer. Like I basically had to give that to Sam, because I was linking all of my pleasure to not doing that. Like I'm okay with the service delivery. Like that I'm okay with. Like she's not. And then see, like that's like where we became obvious with the linkages, because I was sabotaging to getting a customer. Sam's been sabotaging to deliver to a customer. I'm sure we've had, different pain and pleasure linkages over time. It's just that's where we're at today. Like I work in sales, Sam works as a SLP. So like we're both giving services, right? But when it's like services for the business that you offer, I'm sure there's a different set of beliefs and stories around that. But I just wanted to share that, because that's how this all kind of came about, right? And the thing is, like, the thing that you're doing here, the thing that we're all doing is you're not resisting the business, right? Like you're resisting yourself. You're resisting what you are capable of doing with the wiring that you have. And you just really resist the pain of being accountable for an outcome, because you can create the delivery system, like you can get the client, like you can do the thing. You just have to see the dualism that is the future of your reality for what linkages that you have in place. So if I said, okay, I'm going to change my linkages so I link a bunch of pleasure to having clients in a service delivery, like there's a good story with that too, and that's the whole kicker, right? You have to see how you can have what you want and get it too, if that makes sense. Like there's like that saying, you can have your cake and you eat it too. It's finding that silver lining in this, because you can still have long-term no obligations because you did all this work short-term, right? It's the stories and the beliefs that you tell yourself. You can still get to a point where you can figure out your service, and then you can keep promises, because like I'm reading right here. Let me see if I can like zoom in. I'm doing this new like screen. No, I cannot zoom in. All right, I got it here. Hopefully you guys can see this here. This is like Keynote. I'm experimenting with new video. Yeah, right here. No promises to keep. No pressure to deliver. We're looking at number 1. No forced identity change. That's kind of the idea, guys. Like I know there's videos all over the place today. I'm gonna try to edit. This is the first video I'm ever gonna have to edit because this is kind of a lot that I feel like I'm talking about here, but this is the idea of what's changed. Pain and pleasure linkages. I went from thinking of customer as a threat. Now I'm looking at customer as an opportunity to execute a trusted capability. I'm gonna figure it out. That's the whole point. Before, not having a business meant relief. Now, no business means delay. It means stagnation and misgrowth. See, like you gotta get leverage on your beliefs. All right, guys, so what I'm trying to go on about is we were able to get a customer in a way that was not painful, and that's allowed me to be able to flip my wiring in a new way, to realize that I can still have the pleasure that I may have wanted before that was preventing me from being where I wanted in a new way. It's like when you do something, you realize like, oh, it wasn't that bad, Like I didn't think that we would honestly make it this far because I subconsciously sabotaged myself because I linked all this pain to being at this point. But now that I'm here, I'm realizing it's actually pleasurable, Same with the service delivery. Once we figure it all out and it all comes together, it doesn't have to be that big of a deal. It's definitely an identity shift, and I think that's really what the whole point of this video is. Because I've literally transitioned from I'm just trying to figure it out to we're solving a real problem in a repeatable way. And this is all just in real time, right? Like we're capturing this in real time, and this isn't like an easy thing for me to explain because it all just kind of came onto me all of a sudden. But that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make here with the you can have your cake and eat it too, because you can have your business and enjoy running it like the way you may have, like we all wanted to have a business, right? Like that's what I'm trying to say is you can run your business and still have pleasure. That's the whole point. Obligation doesn't need to mean pain. Like making promises do not need to be painful. Having the pressure to deliver does not need to be painful. The level of failure even doesn't even need to be painful, or rejection. Like it can be fun. It could mean something different to you, right? And it's all just a loop, right? You go from uncertainty to avoidance to relief. Like that's the old way of the old wiring. And the new loop is you deal with a problem, like the new problem for us right now is being able to deliver the service. And then you just deliver what you can deliver, get feedback, get the proof, and you build the confidence over time, and then you grow. That's just like a whole lot better than being in that cesspool of uncertainty, avoiding, and then just doing something bad and then feeling relief. I think there's just something going on here. Sam says I'm over explaining this. I think it's a lot deeper than just kind of the surface of what I'm saying here. But I think that there's definitely something special in thinking about these thoughts, because when you really dive deep on them, you're able to really basically go under the hood of your life. And I'm using a car analogy. It's like if you open a car, there's a engine under there, and it's like this is what it all is, right? And when you are able to extrapolate it and actually pour some energy, thought, and time, and consciousness, and awareness, and presence, and a lot of attribution to your history, and corresponding it to your future, you're able to change the course and the direction of your life. If it's a business, it's a business. If it's your diet, it's your diet. If it's your weight, it's your weight. If it's a bad habit, it's a bad habit. Listen, guys, and I'm not trying to come from like, the top of the mountain, like, oh, I got it all figured out now I'm a millionaire. It's like, we still have a lot to go through. We have a lot. This is just a vehicle, right? Like, this is just a way to make sense of the invisible that is a part of our journey and what we're going through and how we're trying to process forward. Because I'm sure, just like myself, Sam has an identity shift going on in real time. And it's just, why I'm so big about it is because I know so many people deal with this. I know so many people just stay stuck and think that it's hard and think that it's going to be, this big scary thing. And, there's ways people can, make things bigger than they are. And it just doesn't need to be like that, is what I'm realizing after today. Like, it can be really simple. It can be really fun. The process of growing a business and making a lot of money doesn't need to be this big thing where it's going to require all this effort and energy, and you're going to fail and be judged, and you probably will be. You probably will go through that. But what I'm trying to say here is that can be pleasurable. Like, it can be more pleasurable than the pleasure of where you currently are, staying stuck and just feeling good in the short term. Because you can find meaning in doing things that you think would be painful in a way that would be pleasurable, versus the contrary of the pain linking to not having a business and not doing it, right? I think that's kind of the full circle moment I'm having. This is kind of my thoughts in the raw version of where they're at right now. So I'm going to kind of just put together this video, and I'm going to make some cuts and kind of just put some things together. But I think I made it out of the woods on this one. Hopefully, if you guys are still here, please let me know your thoughts. Please let me know if this lands, what stood out, what's unclear. What are you dealing with? What does your life look like? What are you linking pain and pleasure to that you'd like to change? Like, I'm genuinely curious. Seriously, I want to know. Comment below, let me know. This is definitely probably one of the best, most favorite breakthroughs I've probably had in a long time. And I honestly haven't had one where I've really pondered it deeply. Because I think this is really changing my life, and this is really changing Sam's life, and this is changing the future of our business in real time, like as I'm talking. Like, I can see how a lot of behaviors and a lot of things I do personally, in a lot of my lower level states and a lot of my, not proudest moments of life, come from this. Like, this is the framework. Like, this is literally how you just change everything. And it's so much easier said than done. Like, I don't know how to do it. I'm not going to sit here and act like I know how to do this, guys. Like, I'm going back and forth trying to even explain this stuff. So hopefully it landed. Hopefully you guys got the gist. I'm sure, this will be funny to laugh back at one day, but I hope to be able to explain this more coherently over time. So, all right, guys, we will see you tomorrow, and we'll let you know how this goes. I think this is going to be a pretty interesting insight to build atop. All right, see you tomorrow.